me know when it says we're live.
I think yep, we're live.
Great. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jim Hodgson here at the Fort Worth Aviation Museum with Garry Goff. It's Wednesday, January 27th, and we thought we'd do something a little bit different today. We've done a lot of videos in the museum or parts of the exhibits of the museum and with the airplanes, but what we haven't done is just a kind of a quick walkthrough of the museum so people can get a feel for what's here and what's available. We know hopefully with some of the COVID things, people are going to be able to get out a little bit more. Weather will be nicer, and you're going to be looking for an opportunity to do a few things. So what we're going to do is give you the visitor experience here, and this is going to be a quick walkthrough. So when you arrive at the museum, this is the entrance. You will come in, and you'll meet one of our volunteers here in the museum store. They're going to meet you as you come in and take care of your tickets if you've already pre-bought from us, or Groupons or whatever, and then we'll go ahead, and after that we usually have people meet their docent out here in the lobby area. This is kind of the greeting area right here, and so this is a place where our docents will meet new visitors as they come in and start to explain to them a little bit of what they're going to anticipate as they do their visit, and we do a walkthrough. So we're going to come down this way, and we've done a video on this area. This is the hallway, the entrance hallway, and what we refer to sometimes as the I didn't know that hallway. So on the right side, as the visitor comes through, we have Aviation History of North Texas. As we move along, we've got a timeline and a number of different exhibits. We start out with Amon Carter and kind of an homage to some of the things he did. On the left-hand side of the hallway, we have the start of the forward air control story. We go all the way back to 1794. Actually, we can go back further than that if we wanted to with the Chinese and some of their man lifter kites and those types of things, but 1794 is kind of where we give the starting point. So this starts to talk about the forward air control story. The golden age of forward air control we kind of refer to as the Vietnam War era. So we have our big display here that Garry built for us, along with the one with the OV-10s on the flag. That was a number of years ago, but they are still relevant to us today. But this is the losses from forward air controllers and in particular the OV-10 people. Again, here on the left-hand side, we have exhibits that change out periodically. Right now, we've got Meacham Field and American Airways hangar, more photos of Meacham Field, and then we've got the Mexican Air Force's Squadron 201 Aztec Eagles. A little bit about Bessie Coleman.
Yeah, I think it was her birthday yesterday.
It may have been
something like that. Yeah,
and I saw that. And I didn't send a card. And then we've got some things on some of the endurance flights that took place here. And then we walk into the main gallery. Unfortunately, with the COVID, we've had to shut down aspects of the gallery, which we hope we'll be able to reinstitute soon. But that's partly our simulators over here, our flight simulators. They're very popular. And I was almost going to say they're very popular with the kids, but we find a lot of adults over here having fun with those simulators too. And so this is a kind of an activity area. We have things for young visitors, whether they be coloring pages or games and books. A lot of families will spend time in this area with really young children, while older kids are going out and seeing other aspects of the museum itself, or going out and seeing the airplanes. 95% of our customers come here to see the airplanes, and so we're going to do that too. But sometimes we see little ones who are actually dragging parents through. They don't want to listen to a docent talk about these nasty old stories. They want to go see the airplanes. So the story splits here. On the side that Garry's at, behind Garry right now, is part of the Forward Air Control Museum, and talks about the development of forward air control, which goes hand in hand with a lot of the aircraft development that's taken place here in North Texas, because a lot of forward air control airplanes were from here. Plus, it's just the use of the airplanes that were built here sometimes, and that kind of a thing. So over on this side is a continuation of the timeline that came down the hallway into what we refer to as the Fort Worth room. We have the early history of aviation here with first flight on January 12, 1911, and then tell the stories chronologically as we go around, with a big section on the First World War, because that's where aviation really took hold here in North Texas, was during the First World War.
And we did that thing on Ryan's Field.
Right, we did that thing on Ryan's Field, and that's where the first Aero Squadron landed, and that's where Cal Rogers landed. We've got a number of different artifacts in here from the First World War and the 3 flying fields that were here. Some of the noted people, like Ormer Locklear. And Gary's standing right next to Benjamin Floyd. Gary, if you'll show him Benjamin. That's Benjamin Floyd, and these are life-size. So you consider World War I aviators were not big people, and it was partly like jockeys on horses. They wanted people who were lightweight.
Yeah, as opposed to me, who's not.
Yeah, Gary and I both needed jets to fly.
But, the high thrust level airplanes take us airborne.
But then we go through some of the evolution of flight here in the area. We use a lot of model airplanes. Some of them have been built by some of our volunteers here. And then other specific exhibits to the First World War, American Airlines. We have a very rare piece here. This is an engine from an airship, and this one was from the Shenandoah, or the Los Angeles rather. The Smithsonian doesn't even have one of these, so we feel very privileged with that. So then here we start to talk about Air Force Plant 4 in the 1940s, when the Air Force Plant 4 was established by the assistance of Amon Carter and with President Roosevelt. So we talk about the development of aircraft and how it changed from Air Force Plant number 4 and then became consolidated. And after consolidated, it became General Dynamics, and it's now Lockheed Martin. So these airplanes are part of the story here. And one quick story, we had a gentleman who came through here one day, and he pointed at the B-58, and he said, "That's the airplane that brought our family here to Fort Worth." He said, "The F-111 is the airplane that put me through college."
Wow.
"And the F-16 is the airplane that put me through law school." So it's not always just airplanes, it's the culture of the area here that aviation has brought and how it's changed. Because not everybody here is an aviation person, but aviation has done a huge amount to change things. We've talked about this before. It's our Airsoft BB model that indicates the number of airplanes that have been built here and the economic impact that that's had. This is one of our favorite exhibits for the kids. This is a T-38 Talon simulator cockpit. And so right now it's closed off because of the COVID, but this gets a lot of use. Kids getting inside the cockpit. And it's really interesting to watch kids in the cockpit because they actually change. Their persona changes. Their eyes change. You can almost see the inspiration taking place as they're in the cockpit and manipulating the controls and feeling different things. As we come down along this part of the case, more models. This section that we're in right now is the B-36 Peacemaker Museum section, and they've been responsible for most of these models in the exhibits. But these are all of the airplanes, starting out with Tarrant Field. After Air Force Plant 4 was built, they built Tarrant Field, which was an Army Air Corps field right across the runway from where the facility was. So in many cases, B-24s were simply taxied across over to Tarrant Field. So it was considered Tarrant Field for a while, and then during the Second World War, it became known as Carswell, and now it's the Joint Reserve Base, Naval Air Station Fort Worth, which happens to be the largest Joint Reserve Base in the country.
I didn't know
one of the first and one of the largest.
Okay.
So these are airplanes that flew here primarily with the Air Force over the period of time. And then this side is the Navy Marine Corps airplanes that fly here at the JRB, along with some other exhibits of a variety of different things. Big F-16 exhibit, because the F-16 has, in terms of a single airplane, total number of aircraft built and economic impact, has probably had more of an economic impact on Fort Worth than any of the other airplanes. The F-35 may overtake that, but for right now, they've got a long way to go. F-16s are flown by, I think it's 25, 26, maybe even 30 different countries. So this airplane has been very, very important to the local history.
Of which we have the number 2 YF-16 that we're
Right.
restoring, which
And we're
is
going to
even
show that.
bigger.
We're going to show that to you. Here's another display. I think this one is really cool about what took place with the first B-36, and then how it went into the XC-99, and just some of the things that it did. And for scale purposes, there's an F-86 and a MiG-15. This is the story of Horace Carswell and what he did to be awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor, and then why he is being honored with the name on the field. Then we come into some of the other things. We've got the F-111s and the B-58. We've got the control system, the power control links for the B-58. Without this computerized control system, the B-58 was essentially unflyable. And this section up here on the top is a computer. Now, it's not near as powerful as the phone that Garry is filming this with. And initially, when it was done, it had vacuum tubes. In fact, there's a story about one time they ran out of vacuum tubes at the plant, and somebody had to run into town to Radio Shack and get vacuum tubes to finish it out. So that's on that side. We've over here, small display on Bell and some of the products that Bell has done here since the 1950s. This is just a kind of a miscellaneous aircraft display of some really beautiful models. We've got some really talented model builders here in the area. This side is another small display. This is on Vought aircraft and LTV.
Which is made here?
Which were made here, the A7s, the F8s, the Corsairs, the F7F or F7Us, and some of the missiles and things like that were done here. Of course, I hate to turn my back on you, but this is more of the forward air control history. We go back to 1794 with France, but they were also used during the Civil War, First World War. This case talks about the fast facts. We've done stories on that. And then we've got other kind of memorial cases. And then this area too is also kind of the kids area. We have game stations here to let the kids play on or watch kids movies. This is predominantly the Vietnam era wall. The Vietnam era, as again we said, was kind of the classic or the golden age of forward air control, because so many different aircraft were used, and they were so reliant on forward air controllers to be able to do missions that are now being done by lasers and drones and a lot of those kinds of things. But enough talking inside. Let's go take a walk through the Airpark.
Let's go see the birds, the jets.
So we have 28 aircraft on display here. Making sure my mic is still turned on. Got 28 aircraft on display here. Some of them are available to sit in, like the small Kiowa here. It's kind of, we call it the yard art, so kids can just kind of get into it and want. Otherwise, the aircraft are displayed out here, and this is the point. We have the most touchable warbirds in Texas. And what we mean by that is that you can walk up to and touch every one of these airplanes. Can't climb on them. We prefer that you don't climb on them, but you can touch them. And with some of them, people see little airplanes fly over, and it amazes the kids to be able to see the size and how substantially they are built, and in some cases be able to get into them. So it's a real experience to be able to walk up to airplanes, touch them, and then have somebody tell you how they were used in combat, or how they were used in their roles. So this is our front row. We've got the F5 that was in Top Gun, and it's right next to our Blue Angel. And then an A4 that was used here by the Navy and the Marine Corps for about 10 years. Next to that is the A7 and both of those on. We've got the F-105 and the QF-4. One of our more recent acquisitions is the H-1 Army H-1 Cobra, which is almost 100% complete. The three barrel Gatling gun on the front. It's got the missile launchers on the side. It's very complete, and on weekends we take the cover off of the canopy so people can see inside of those. As we walk through the park here,
Hey, we need more jets.
Were built here. Most of them spent a lot of their career in England and Europe. This one did with Upper Hay for many years. And then right next to that is our other swing wing airplane, which is the Airpark. And so these are very close together in era in terms of swing wing technology and the things that were taking place with us combating the MiG-23, which also had swing wings. For a while, the Navy would attempt to use the F-111s. They turned out to be heavy for the carriers. We've got the big green device, which is a CA-3C helicopter. And we're going to walk around in a little while so that you can see why it's so popular. This row over on our right now is kind of FAC row. We've got two O2 Skymasters. A version is the gray airplane, and the black airplane is the night version. And then we have our namesake airplanes, which are two of our three OV-10 Broncos. The first one is painted up in a late 1990s camouflage that the Marine Corps used just before it decommissioned the OV-10s. And the gray one in back is the Air Force version. And they use that gray version of the paint scheme pretty much for its entire career.
And what's really cool is we've both flown these jets.
Yes,
not jets, but they use jet fuel.
We've flown those, yeah.
Yeah, we both have time.
They're turbine powered, so they really are a jet,
Yeah,
but they're propellers on the outside instead of the inside.
Yeah.
We've got our grove here, which during the spring and summer when the trees are all in bloom, gives you a place to come in out of the sun, have a picnic.
And there are lots of people that have picnics
Lots of
out
people
here.
have picnics.
Oh, yeah.
We do birthday parties here. And thanks to one of the local Boy Scout troops, these were recently totally refurbished. So some of them new wood, but they've all been newly stained and that kind of thing. We're going to get towards the back of the lot here a little bit. We've got another F4, and we've talked about this before. It says Navy, but it's really an Air Force F4.
And how can you tell it's a Navy versus Air Force?
Well, if you look at the tail,
That's a big thing. The tail numbers.
The tail is the biggest or the easiest. I mean, there are so many things where it's a variation on the fuselage or that kind of thing, but it's the tail number. The Air Force and the Army use what we generally refer to as dash numbers.
Yep.
Where the Marine Corps and the Navy and the Coast Guard use it or what are referred to as bureau numbers, which don't tell you much about the airplane at all.
It doesn't. I know that bird was built in '64. It says it right there,
As opposed to
1964.
dash numbers, the first two numbers are the contract year of the airplane. So
What are the Marines and Navy thinking of? You know?
no telling, but that goes back a long way, so it's tradition.
Oh yeah.
And we don't want to spoil it.
No, God no.
We're not going to go all the way back today, but in the way back behind the fence, you'll see all wrapped up the A-12 Avenger 2 Flying Dorito. The tail you're seeing back there that says 0-62337 is our TF-102, and that airplane was flown by President Bush on 3 different occasions when he was in the Guard. The yellow and blue airplane is an SNV that has a history over at Navy Henley Field, which was Navy Dallas, and is now it's not there. Now it's not there anymore. But this airplane has been designated for our Civil Air Patrol unit that lives inside of our Blue Barn. So we have a Civil Air Patrol unit that's here, and they are taking over the care and feeding of this airplane, and they're going to configure it back to what the CAP's airplanes look like when they were doing coast patrols here in Texas during the Second World War. So we're going to walk over to the main ramp. And this whole area is where we have hops and props. We usually have an airplane out in this area, and we will again soon, because we have an American Heritage Girls organization that's going to come out in March, and they're going to refurbish the President Bush's TF-102.
Awesome.
So we're going to move it out here so people can see it, and it'll be on display. Come out here on our maintenance ramp, closed off to visitors unless they're with a docent, mainly because airplanes can be on jacks here, various states of work. We've got our RF-8 we've talked about, our RF-8 simulator trailer, which has been prepped and ready for paint. It's going to be totally refurbished, and then we're going to move it to where it's going to be easier for visitors to get that experience.
Another cockpit to sit in.
Another
Real
cockpit.
cockpits.
We've got our Cobra on a trailer, and back in what we call the glowworm, we've got the original OV-10 mock-up, some of our ground support equipment, and our TA-4, which you've seen before. It's ready to paint, so we're looking for a place to paint it. Our Kiowa that was essentially destroyed, but it looks like we got a replacement coming on that. T-28, the Mexican Air Force T-28.
And what's interesting about T-28, I like to show people, this is how we get a lot of our airplanes. And our job is to put them back together again to what you see out there in the yard. So that's what we do. We put them back together again.
And then we can tell you the stories.
Exactly.
And with a lot of these airplanes, the story isn't even what it is when it's finished. The story is the before and after. And so this is the next one we're going to talk about, before and after. This is the number 2 YF-16 number 2 prototype. So this airplane was built in 1974. And the interesting thing about this one is the first YF-16 only flew for about 3 years, and then it went to the Virginia Air and Space Museum, and it's been hanging from the ceiling there ever since. This YF has been working ever since day one. When it completed its flight testing and its flight missions, it was sent to Rome, New York, to the Air Force Research Laboratory, where they modified it to have the cross-section and silhouette of a production F-16, and it has been used on ranges out there for work with antennas and other types of things. So this airplane, and that's what you see, this framework here, this is not part of the airplane, but this is the framework so that they could have it up on a tower, upside down, right side up, however they needed to do it. They modified this airplane heavily. There was a 10-inch plug that was put in, the wings were modified, the nose was different, and our crew right now is in the process of restoring this back to its original configuration and original look. So it's going to go from this gray airplane
back to its original
red, white, and blue. And I know some of you are going to tell me that it was cream and blue. Yes, but we have decided to show this airplane as it was going to look when it was supposed to go to the Paris Air Show.
And when it went out, and it was the first F-16 model to use the cannon against a dart.
Right. Yeah.
Not the first one. The first model didn't do it. It was the second one, which is what we're looking at here, actually did the mission that the F-16s do now.
You can see there's the gun port is right here. So the only other airplane we have out here right now is our T-37. Anybody who's been in the Air Force and flown up until just a few years ago has got time in these airplanes, either in training or as a station airplane. And let's take a quick look in here, because what we're going to do is on this, because the canopy was in really bad shape. We still need to do windscreens. I mean, Gary, if you'll show them inside, it looks pretty nasty inside. Okay, so this is
because it is nasty inside.
But this is before we have a cockpit simulator for this airplane, and our intent is to take the guts out of that cockpit simulator, put it in here, and then we're going to be off to the races. So that's about it for here today. We wanted to give you a quick walk around. Oh, we were going to show them the helicopter. Let's get the helicopter real quick.
We'll close with that.
The RV here is, this is not Uncle Eddie's RV.
No, but it's close.
Cousin Eddie's RV. This RV has actually been configured so that we have 4 virtual reality flight simulators inside.
Where you can actually experience flying an F-18.
Yes.
All done virtual, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it really is. And at some point in time, if we can find a sponsor, we'll probably wrap it. But here, we're going to end here with our CH-53 again. Again, this is the most popular airplane here. And people go, well, gee, it's just a big helicopter. Well, that's the point. And this big helicopter, the visitors can come in and walk around inside and see what it's like here. And we've actually done some birthday parties in here too. So hope you enjoyed this quick little walk around. come out and see us. We're open Saturdays from 9 until 2. Hopefully that's going to expand as the weather gets better and as the COVID starts to diminish a little bit. Just think about us when you're looking for a fun afternoon, because the kids love it out here and the adults actually do too. They'll admit to that later on. So at any rate, for Garry Goff and Jim Hodgson here at the Fort Worth Aviation Museum, stay safe, stay well, and we'll see you on Saturday.
See ya.